Hello everybody, my name is the Orca Man and welcome back to the Orca Man podcast. It is, the beginning of October and I'm really excited to be here and hang out. I'm about to be doing something that I never have before, which is trying to give a bit of a recap, not only to, what happened in September. This is a thing that I'm hoping to do kind of going forward, but for the past year, because it's been ridiculous. This is like the first time that I've ever in my entire life, in the 3 or 4 years that I've been doing this, try to take it a little bit more seriously and put more kind of aspects and resources together for you guys outside of outside of the just TikTok and Instagram, because that has been really fun. I started that for fun during COVID, but to actually get this started of I want to see what I can do to engage a little bit more and do more of the things that I was excited about in the first place. And that was a whole bunch of stuff. When I first started out this, actually, if you look on my page, it was Project Sonic. And so I started out with that. It was a whole thing trying to do research and stuff, but it didn't work out for a whole number of reasons, and I needed an avenue to figure it out. And so we're going to get it, further into the idea of making research and other things and events accessible. So that's what this is. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I will have a YouTube video up. There's a green screen behind me. It's the first time I'm doing this. This is the first kind of episode of this degree, like I said. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to get into it. And so much just gonna happen. Even back in September, I've been following killer whales since I was I've been following killer whales since I was 3. But I don't think that counts. I feel like when we're, really, really young, I wasn't, keeping up with anything. But then, when I was, how old? I must have been 14? No, 12. 12, I, started learning about the southern resident killer whales, the endangered population out here. And I wanted to come, so I ended up showing up out here 2014, 2015 to see. I actually was lucky enough to see the southern residents. So that was really nice, and that was really cool. And just oh my god, I get to see the whales that I've been following in person, and super kind of happenstance to make that happen in the first place. But then it gets into getting out here and spending the time, and I've been out in Vancouver for 7 years now, and I have seen orcas, I don't know, less than 25 times. Less than 20, it's almost a crime for kind of who I am and what I do. I get it, but my biggest goal was kind of learning about the history, trying to get people interested on that front. That all to say that the thing that I'm trying to talk about for September was the fact that I went down to San Juan Island with my friend Kendra for her birthday weekend. It was her and Tamara, who also had a birthday that weekend, so it was a big thing for them. But the reason that we stay down there is because, you stay around that period of time, and then all of a sudden you have the opportunity to see orcas if they're going by the island. And one of the mornings we woke up, and it was oh my god, there's a killer whale and its baby. And we woke up the night before. This was crazy. It's if you're ever on San Juan Island or around a place where a hydrophone is, where you can see land-based, see orcas from land, keep it on almost all the time. Because the night before this, didn't see, but we heard, it's pitch blackout, all of the southern resident killer whales, or at least a lot of them, going from down Harrow Strait, south Harrow Strait on the west side of San Juan Island, through. It was the middle of the night. We could hear the calls over the Limekiln hydrophone, and we could hear the splashes and the blows of the whales as they were going out, which was ridiculous. Also, too, I found out that the iPhone, at least the 15, had a crazy night camera. It looked like it was daytime. I took a photo of the moon, and it was nuts. Yeah, that was crazy. I'm also going to try to slow down a little bit. Part of the excitement for this, I got a Monster. I usually don't drink energy drinks, but I feel like podcasting for a while. It's the vibe. It's the move to get excited. But yeah, so the next morning we wake up, we hear that there's a baby and a mother going around. We're oh my god, this is so cool. And so we go down and we're waiting and we see it come through, and we are lucky enough we're staying at Limekiln to get a few different passes, which was it was incredible. If you haven't seen the images and you're not on YouTube, or you're not on YouTube right now, head over to my Instagram page. All of the videos are there. It's so incredible. The little one is so cute, and it had it was so young that it had fetal folds. So like when orcas are, babies and they're in their mother's wombs, they're all crunched up. They're all like, and so when it's like that, right, it's got all its folds in it, just, as it's like kind of collapsed in on itself. And then when it comes out, you still see those folds for a few days, but only a few days, right? Like it goes away pretty quick because it's stretching out and there's a lot of muscles moving and stuff like that. So that was really cool, but it was like a testament to the fact of how new this little one was. And like, there are certain times where you can go and like think that it's bear cub season, where you can go and find a cub specifically, be like, oh my god, I know where they're going to be, whatever. Or you can't really do that with orcas. Like there's definitely a calving season, but to like be there within 48 hours of a whale being born is like like the amount of luck that goes into it, not only for like researchers, or like not only for like us, but like we're also researchers, like it's insane. And so to have that kind of like experience, to be there for the beginning of that, and even, I mean, I don't have a camera. Tamara actually just lent me one. Lucky enough, it's over there. I'm not using it for this podcast because I don't know how to use a camera yet. But it was even before I had that. I was literally shooting through my iPhone and binoculars to try and get the footage that I did, which I'm very happy with. I know Kendra and Tamara got a whole bunch too, so if you want to go check out Orca Conservancy's page, they have like a whole bunch of stuff on it, which is, well, to say the least, exciting. And like a crazy bucket list item that I never thought that I'd be able to kind of, tick off a list so quickly. So I was very, 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 very excited about that. That little one is so cute. And is set up. And there's so many fun things coming out about it. The Center for Whale Research is going to keep an eye, as well as Wild Orca. There's a whole bunch of organizations that are like really paying attention, SR3. And so, it's going to be fun to see the continuation for this little one as it goes. Another thing that comes with this, well, there's like 3 things, right? The first one is the mother, so the L128 is the name of the calf. They were actually able to confirm that L90 was its mom, or is its mom, because they saw it nursing. And so when you see an orca nursing, it's like the one guarantee. So even beforehand, like I was sitting down with Kendra and Tamara, it's like, oh, we can't really say that the L128 or the little one is, L90 ballena, B-A-L-L-E-N-A, so it's like whale in Spanish, is the mom. And so you can't really say that because we don't 100% know. Sometimes there's babysitting that happens and things. And so what ended up happening was, as soon as you see nursing from the mother to the calf, it's like, aha, that's it, 100%. We actually can guarantee. And so everybody was able to kind of take a breath, but we know it's the mom. And she's 31. She is the oldest first-time mother in the southern resident killer whale population. There are different populations of orcas. Naturally, this is one specific subsect of the resident ecotype, the southern resident killer whales. And within that population, it's the oldest mother seen. But it's really cool because it means that, well, they're still having babies. Number one is always a good thing. But also, two, that they can, at any point, even if a mother might be determined to, like, be less likely to sire a calf, sire a calf is for males. To have a calf, she still can. And so that's a really cool kind of, like, addition for it. Sorry if you can hear the chair I'm sitting on. I really need to get a new one. It's not that great. The other half about calves that I only figured out recently is that everybody knows, kind of like intrinsically, and I think it's been alluded to in studies, but it's never been like fully fleshed out, is that for killer whales, because they're at the top of the trophic levels, build up all of these kind of toxic contaminants in their bodies, PCBs, which were outlawed in like the 80s, but still are persistent within waters, at least here, and I imagine in a lot of other places too, will build up in their bodies, and it ends up having adverse effects on various biological processes. But when mothers have calves, through gestation and lactation, they release a lot of those toxins just because their body is, working to get rid of so much energy, nutrients, whatever you might have you. And that usually goes into the calf. And so that's one fear when it comes around first-time mothers. At least this is the first time that we've seen L90 with a calf. And so there's a bit of concern in any instance to make sure that the little one's okay. We're still quite excited for her, but like it's not a thing that we know 100%. And so we're rooting for it. But the thing that I was talking about earlier that I didn't know was that research hasn't been specifically done yet. And so I'm particularly excited. It's currently happening, is what I'll say. And one of my friends is doing it. I'm actually having dinner with her tonight. If I can, I need to check. I don't think it's under wraps, but like, yeah, Chloe Kotik is a researcher who's like currently working on her PhD, kind of going through all of it, and is like going through that. It's not monumental, but it is like, and it's going to be an incredibly kind of impactful piece of information that's going to be out there. And so very, very, very excited to see what happens there. And also too, like super stoked for her to like take that on, because that's really cool. It's a part of this. Like I think about the timeline of kind of orca history all the time, because I'm like, I am not existing in the story of, oh, we're all here and there's a ton of researchers that exist today. I'm like, that's completely true, but also, I understand that 40 years ago it was people trying to figure out the most basic of things. I mean, it was the 80s, like killer whale like captivity around this area was just stopping and stuff like that, and like research was just beginning. But there's still such a kind of new feeling to it. I imagine it's the same kind of way where people feel about like technology, thinking like, it's only been less than 20 years since the first iPhone came out. Like, you don't realize how short the time has been. Like, the first killer whale that was ever captured was put on display when Joe Biden was 18, 19, which also, might as well have been the dinosaurs. But it's still, like, insane to think about that the people who captured killer whales are still kicking and hanging out. But that's really what I wanted to say for L128, that it was like, one, we're super excited to have the little one around. I can't believe that I saw it. It was crazy. Also, too, seeing Baena was a lot of fun, and seeing just a Southern resident in general was like pretty solid for this year. Also means I get to kick off all 3 populations in 1 year. It's the first time I've ever been able to do that. And I was able to see them all technically in the Salish Sea. So there's like 3 populations here in the Pacific Northwest. There is the southern resident killer whales, there are the northern resident killer whales, and then there are our Biggs orcas, right? So the southern residents I was able to knock off in September. The northern residents I've actually knocked off twice. So the first one was back in March. They came down, if you look at a map of Vancouver, and if you've ever taken the ferry from Vancouver to Nanaimo, you've been through Horseshoe Bay. And so it was actually over by Horseshoe Bay where I ended up seeing the northern residents. It was also with Tamara and Kendra, which was awesome, and really excited to have some whale watching buddies. But they were following it pretty closely, and we were able to get a few different passes of like a bunch of orcas coming together. I also ran way too fast and way too quickly that day, and like tuckered myself out real bad. We also stopped ferry traffic. So we were supposed to go to Langdale. We were supposed to go to the Sunshine Coast because we were just guessing. It was like blind hope that we could go one way or another. And then we actually we parked our car, we were in line to go to Langdale, and then like stopped. Had to like stop traffic and like give ourselves a kind of like window to be able to move the car to get into another lane to get on the Bowen Island ferry. Had we done it a little bit earlier, we could have gotten there earlier, but we were there enough to see the whales. So that was like a huge win on that front. And actually, that one might have been one of my first kind of like instances of seeing orcas this year, which was cool and a lot of fun. So like northern residents is the first time I've seen them. They got super hooked fins as well. So right now, I have a thing holding up my phone. It's the Orca Conservancy flashcards. And so actually it's funny enough when you're looking at, identifying killer whales, and so that's what that is flashcards for different populations, specifically the southern residents and some transients. But northern residents have such a like sickled fin, like I would call them the communist of the orcas, just for like strictly physically, in the way that they look, which is neat. But you can really clearly kind of clock them on there. So that was really cool to see them and be like, oh my god, it is so clear that you're like a different kind of a different population. Because even I try to differentiate, and it was a thing I said I wanted to do this year that I didn't do as much because I've been, at least I felt like I've been running and running and running and running and running, but now things are slowing down a little bit. I'm able to at least do a little bit of, resident versus transient documentation, or like identification, but I want to get better at both visual and the audio. The audio is the next big one, and there's a lot of ways to do both of those. Like, here's apps. I know the Northern Resident Killer Whales have a whole bunch of stuff. I think Orca Cetology has a whole bunch of stuff for, what's it called? For transients. They should have a bunch for bigs. And bigs is like, they're pretty quiet too. That's one thing. It's like, because they're transients, the mammal eaters, they go on hunting seals, but they'll like, while they're underwater, won't like, vocalize as much because they don't want to freak out their prey, which is seals and sea lions and porpoises and other marine mammals that are underneath. So, that's its own sort of digs. But that brings me to, so I saw, it was initially northern residents, and then I saw transients in May when I went out for the first time with wild whales. It was the first whale watch I ever went out of in Vancouver, which is crazy. First whale watch I ever went out of in Vancouver was wild whales, May 2024, and the next time I went out with them was my own personal tour. So it was really cool to kind of have that set up. And so I will say, there's like a huge feeling of like, imposter syndrome isn't the right term, I don't even think. I think it's just like maybe it is, like a lack of credibility. Because the thing that I bring to any of these instances is like, while I don't feel like I know a lot, I know and have been focusing on a lot of these topics and pieces of information for a long time. And so there's a perspective that I have, and there's like an excitement definitely where I see myself and I continue to see myself. And I hope like this podcast, this kind of setup is a place to give reference to a lot of the things that people are excited about. There's so many people. This is like my biggest thing is whenever somebody emails like, or comments, oh my God, I've loved orcas forever and I really want to, learn more about them. I've like forgot about this like special interest or whatever, hyperfixation. And so if I can give people an easier avenue to get kind of deeper into this one specifically, in my head, that's only going to do good things. So that's the goal. I also realize now that I'm a little bit far from the microphone, so I don't know if the audio is going to be any decent on this. What other whales have I seen? So that was the next whales was in May, which was exciting and a lot of fun. That was really, really a good time. I got very wet on that tour. It was not even raining, but the water was super wavy, and when it was wavy, we were just going up and down. Excuse me. But that was really cool, and so I was very pleased for that. And what was I talking about? What was I thinking about? What would have been the next one? The next one was Outer Island Excursions. It was another group of transients, and that was easily, sorry to everybody else, the best tour that I went on this summer. So Outer Island Excursions is a company out of Anacortes. There was like a few different ones that I partnered with this year. It was Outer Island Excursions, Wild Whales, and the Vancouver Island Whale Watch out of Nanaimo. And Outer Island Excursions, I did like not tours with them per se, but like I went down and was just promoting it as like, hey, if you use my code, if you want to go like hang out and talk shop, I'll be on these 2 specific tours. And so that was a blast of like setting those up. And so it wasn't like I was necessarily a part of it. It was more so just, there's a bunch of people throughout those in which we was able to get, more in touch with and hang out and hear their stories, how they found me, what they were excited about with regard to orcas. And so with that one, I brought 2 of my buddies down, Joe Peacock and Tobin Sparling, and both of them were incredible in their own right. Joe was a photographer. Joe was more so a videographer, like a wildlife videographer, and Tobin is a photographer. And so the 2 of them together, I'm like, masterpiece. It was like, felt like part of a team, which for a long time for this, it's been a very individual thing. Like I spent my whole spring, if you guys have seen, doing the land-based whale watching guide, which if you haven't seen or like taken a look at it yet, please do, if only because of one thing. I have made and don't think I can make any money off of it at all. It is purely out of the will of my heart to be able to like put a resource like that together. And it took, I can promise you, the greater majority of my spring, to the point where like it was, I would just stay up for hours on end sitting down and being like, okay, this is how I want to do this. I want to edit this like this. I redid it 3 or 4 times to try and get it like at a place where it was right, because it was initially like a huge, like one big document, and then I was like, no, I should split it up into sections, because there's 4 different kind of like locations that I was paying attention to. So there was Howe Sound up near Vancouver, there was San Juan Island as like the island itself, there was Puget Sound, which is a pretty large area in comparison to those two, and then Vancouver Island, which is literally the largest island off of North America. So the like full extent of that is like a whole different game to deal with. And so, you know, slowly getting everything together on that front, which was really good, and I'm very proud of it. And so that was really nice. How did I get onto that? I know I was talking about outer island excursions, because those were the 3 that I was doing, going with the land-based guide. Thank you for supporting. Either way, that was the craziest one. So I was working on it by myself because it was Joe. We're back. Joe and Tobin were awesome throughout that, and then we were on the boat with Sam. I have no idea what his last name is. I'm blanking on it right now, but he's online as Paleopedia, and Brooke. And Brooke was particularly excited to be on with. Those were both the naturalists on board of Outer Island when we were going. Just because, one, she was very sarcastic and I was hysterical. You can hear back to the podcast before this one with Joe and Tobin talking specifically about the banter that happened on the boat. And that was like, I was half the fun of like sitting down and just being able to like joke with whale people. To the extent where like, you know, whenever I promote, you know, come out, hang out with me on a boat, come on a tour one way or another, it's really just an invitation to be like, hey, we're a bunch of nerds going to do some fun stuff. If you want to come along to do nerd shit, like, if you want to come along to talk about whales for hours, that's kind of what we do. That's the whole gambit. It's like a great amount of the community's fun, and especially too for like a lot of us, and when I talk about a lot of us, like Joe, Tobin, a lot of the other naturalist friends that I have, like the ability to talk with friends specifically about this industry that we're so like entrenched with and know a lot of different things about. It doesn't happen as often necessarily for people that are working on whale watch boats because they're talking to people all the time. So when, you know, any person whose job it is to talk to people will tell you that the greatest thing you could possibly do is talk to somebody who's excited and interested about the thing that you are. And so that's what it is. It's like, it's one of the reasons I think I've been so excited to put on any of the things that I have, and I'd be really excited too for anybody that comes and anybody that I've talked to that wants to get involved has been like, oh yeah, I want to talk to people who are the most engaged they've ever been. And like a whole group of them at once, because it's, well, I mean, you're not following me if you're not like at least a little bit interested. It's not, oh, I'll go on a whale watch while I'm in a place for fun. It's like, oh no, like, I care a little bit. I want to understand. At least that is what I think is happening. I've been wrong plenty of times. So there's very easy that couldn't be the case. But either way, that day that we went out, it was really cool. We went to practically Victoria. So it's like with whale watching in this area, you can cross country lines, but you can't dock anywhere, right? So it's like we saw Victoria in the background and we saw a double spy hop. We saw breaches. We saw some orca keels, if you would. Some of them were whipping out the snake, which is its own brand of entertaining. I only think we saw that after. And I will say this, I got film photography of killer whales that day. It was the first time I'd ever tried proper orca photography. I had never before, even in my youth when I started coming out here, like occasionally, I tried to like take decent photographs. I've taken some videos, and they were half decent. There were some that I can remember getting like really early on. I was even doing the phone and the binocular thing back in like 2014, 2015, I can remember. And that was when there was only one camera on the iPhone. So I was like, even with this, I didn't trust it because I'm like, oh, there's two cameras on it. Like, there's no way that it's going to work. Well, I'm really glad that it did. But I took out a digital camera, like a disposable camera, because that's what I had with me. And so I took out the disposable, and I went and I sat down and I like waited. But they were so active that I was able to capture, I think, 2 breaches on film. And like, to the point where I have the digitized photos that you'll see on here, but I have the like actual physical photos and you can see the breach, which is so cool. I actually might try to get a few more of that one specifically developed to like put out there for anybody, because I'm like, this is really fucking, on a disposable camera, that's pretty cool. It makes me want to do film cameras for this, because that was initially how like how like Michael Bigg and the rest of his team decided that they wanted to identify orcas, was taking film photographs of the whales, specifically I think on their left side, and that was all that they had, but they used that kind of like film photography to, maintain and keep it going forward, which at my front, there's a huge factor of like, I want to pay homage to that. That's really cool. I also don't have the time and money to invest in film. Like, I've definitely done pretty well this year. It's like the best that I've kind of had. For anybody who's bought the shirt that's already come out and gone, I cannot thank you enough. That was a really, really cool kind of like experience to have set up. And I want to do more. In fact, there's like one about the Gladis killer whales that I'm really excited about. That is not even in production yet, but I really want to try getting that moving. But I'm very, 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 very much looking forward to how that turns out. And if you haven't yet, if you don't know what's going on with the Gladis killer whales, I made a YouTube video. One of my friends, Sam, who I made on Threads when I put out, like, I don't want to edit this. This is going to be a long time. Not even I don't want to edit it. That's wrong. It is, I could edit this and I have the capacity to over a long, long period of time. But if somebody wanted the experience to set it up, not even like, can you do it for free? But like, I know that I can't spend the time to sit down and do this. So if you want to, and like you want to put your name on something, you need a reference, like I'm willing to talk. And they were great. It turned out pretty well. I'm very excited with how it came about. And so check that out. It was good fun. And wait for the thing to come out too. But that was fun. These tours are really cool. The affiliate stuff for the whale watches, I feel like, has gone pretty well. I want to do a little bit better next year. Like, there's different ways, I think, that can lend itself to kind of like getting people out more. Because my biggest thing is, I think, tourists, no matter what, are going to go out. That's the greater majority. It is crazy to me that, and it's also unsurprising that tourists of this area, and when I say this area, I mean the Pacific Northwest, so like Washington, British Columbia specifically, not necessarily Alaska, because I feel like they're already out there, but tourists will see more of our cities than we will. Like, the tours that go out and explore the waterways of Vancouver, like, I couldn't tell you a lot of my friends who like have been around here would do that. And like, I think it also is in part of like, if I'm going to spend $200, I'm going to spend it on something else that is going to get me outside. I'm not going to spend it like going down and taking a tour in the city. But I also think that that's the wrong idea, because not necessarily the wrong idea, but it's a thing that is worth kind of like putting time and effort towards, because it gives you a whole different perspective on this area and kind of where we are. I think that's half the reason that even when I showed up here, I wasn't really thinking about the land. Now I'm getting into geography. This was my degree, to be honest. There's like physical and environmental geography, and there's like social geography. There's a lot of different aspects and layers to it. But like, part of that idea is when you think about kind of where you are in land. So if you want to even do this right now yourself, it's the thing I try to do on the tours. It's like, picture in your head like you're, a top-down view, as if you're looking at a map. But try to get a really like really physical sense. Think about how far, if you're looking out your window, like a tree is, or how far you are to the water. Like think about the drives that you do, and to any specific instance, and then slowly try to zoom out and spread out kind of horizontally, or laterally. Yeah, laterally as much as you can to understand like the land you're on and how it's connected. Because even when I went to UBC's on the peninsula at the edge of Vancouver. It's on the westmost side of it, but it's also too like on this cliff face that goes down. It looks out over like the southernmost glacial fjord in Canada. I went to a cool school, I will say. When I think about it, I cannot think about my school without like getting a little like, oh my god, that was awesome. That is so nice. I cannot believe that is where I spend my time, and I want to go back around soon. But the idea was like, even when I was there and I was thinking about kind of like its, conditional or like relational locality. It's like not the right word exactly, but to be able to like sit there and expand out and to understand how kind of incorporated and like easy to see how the ecology was connected to our local landscape. Because I grew up in Boston, and the waterways in there are like laughed at from the start. Literally, the song Dirty Water is indicative of the way in which people think about that city. To the degree where I just made a video that was talking about like, oh, like, do you think whale watchers actually see whales? And I can tell you honestly that growing up thinking about the fact that there were whale watchers out of Boston, and this is another testament to the thing that I was talking about earlier, I almost didn't. I'm like, sure, like there are whale watchers out there, like they go see humpbacks maybe, but it wasn't a thing that I trusted or like believed at any point. That was like, oh no, they see humpbacks all the time, it's like a consistent thing. And I know I'm wrong for a number of reasons, and I also too know, and I will like gladly admit this, that I didn't care as much because I was only interested in killer whales. like, like in my entire life, people are like, "You're interested in the ocean and nature," and I'm like, "Yes, I am a fan of nature. Nature's great, and I'm a fan of the ocean. The ocean is really cool. I love surfing. There is so much that I've been, interested in the more I've gotten to understand and learn about the ocean. But the greater majority of that is all like very surface level, like, oh, this is really cool and exciting and like, it's fun to be around in. Both think of it as like a recreational, and then especially with geography, thinking about it as like a tool for transport, and then especially too thinking about even on a greater notion, the ecology and the greater forces of nature that are at work within the ocean. That's absolutely incredible. But I like the only thing that I love, like that I will spend days and hours dreaming about, wanting to research, wanting to explore, is orcas, like specifically. And it's so people, sharks, humpback whales, and they're cool. They're cool, and I appreciate them. They're great. They have parts within the ecosystem. I respect it. But that's not what I do. And so it's even when I started this, I'm like, going down into the niche of the niche for like killer whales specifically. Because I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to talk about killer whales. I want to know as much as I possibly can. And, I enjoy being able to kind of dive into it the more that I can. And especially to like, knowing as much as possible about what's going on and the reasons why they are. Like there was this stranding recently that happened in California, and so like being on top of understanding when that happens, what populations they are, what the threats are coming to them, who's paying attention to them in these different areas, and who's in charge. I think another avenue, and this is just like really kind of laying down the full breadth of the way that I think about this stuff on the table, is it's a topic that I feel like I can understand the entirety of and never quite get there at the same time. Like, I believe that there is so much to do with killer whales around the world that it's, there's so much information that it's a never-ending list of things that you could, uncover and learn more about and otherwise. But in terms of like mastering a craft, so to speak, that's like a thing for, you really want to get like really, really amazing on these certain aspects. I'm like, this is my, I don't even know what it would be. This is my music. Some people really want to understand all the ins and outs of music theory. Like, this is something to that degree for me of like why public view has shifted on orcas, how different populations and individuals have had effects on people, and the ways in which they have, the stories of the changes in hearts, the stories of people really coming to have a greater respect and understanding for these animals, and the different ways that they do. It's like it's really cool to see the way that people around the world in all of their own facets have come to like revere this animal in a lot of ways, and on the like kind of flip side, demonize the crap out of it. Like, orcas were seen as devils for so long, like up until the 60s, literally up until somebody caught one, swam with it, and then like changed kind of the way in which we see it. Also, I'm hitting my nose all the time right now. Don't worry about that. That is my nose is garbage. It needs a lot of work, and it will get it in time. That's a thing that will happen down the road. But like, I promise you, it's just the fact that it's being dried out. And even I think the last time that I was talking, for this long, just straight, was the kind of shirt. What was it? It was the shirt drop back in August. Like late August, early September, me and Rob, the guy that I was working with to put those on, we did like 4 or 5 days straight of like going. And I remember talking to him about that too. We were like, publishing all the shirts, or like literally printing all the shirts by hand. He was printing them by hand. I was separating, folding, making sure they were cured, and then kind of getting all the other things ready at the time. And we live streamed for the kind of last bit of it when we were packing shirts, just trying to get people excited, and then anybody who purchased, we wanted to really get kind of the stuff sorted. But that was really cool and exciting. But I talked for about 9 hours straight, which was a bit too much now that I realize. And it's also funny because whenever I go to post something online, I'm always like, I have nothing to say. Shut up and start talking. Usually helps. But with that, though, we're also talking about like, we're going to look back on this as an exciting thing. And it was nice to do. And it was like, I was like, oh, like this is a job, which is neat. But we like killed ourselves for like 5 days. And that was a bit much and not as necessary. So we're going to change the avenue for how that happens coming next time. So that'll be good. And then going back to sightings for this year, I like how that's the one consistent driver, and I'm finding tangents. But after the Outer Islands trip in June, because that was in June, that was actually a crazy weekend. Because the next time I saw orcas was 2 days after that, because we went Outer Island excursions in Anacortes. I came home. We drove back to Vancouver that night. The next morning I woke up, took the first ferry out of Horseshoe Bay to Nanaimo because Kendra, Tamra, and my other friend Allie, who you might know as the Moth on TikTok, drove up to Telegraph Cove to go to Coastal Insights. That was a event put on by Megan Hawken Bennett, and it featured a whole kind of slew of speakers. There was Jared Towers. There was somebody from some director of MERS, and I think her name is Jackie. I could be wrong, but she was really, really good and had a really great speech about humpbacks and a lot of the work that they're doing. I think Strong Coast was there, but it was a really cool kind of event. It was also in the Killer Whale Interpretive Center, the Killer Whale Interpretive Center, and that place was really cool. It's a nice little red wooded building at the end of the pier in Telegraph Cove, which is such a cute little town. We were only there for, I think it was one night actually, but it was delightful. It was super nice to be up there. And then we saw Northern Residents out with the tour up there the next day, and so that was a lot of fun to go hang out with them for that. We also got the four of us, me, Kendra, Tamra, and Allie, matching quarter zips and sweatpants with orcas on the butt. That was good. I appreciated that. That's my killer whale. It's my killer whale kind of like wrap for this year. Is like the most money I spent on that. I spent like $80 on a quarter zip, which was it's what you got to spend now, which is a lot. And it also makes me feel like I may have undercharged, but that's okay because I want people to be able to get stuff and feel comfortable about it and good about it. I don't think I'm going to be doing quarter zips anytime soon. Although I might do hats for the go see a whale thing. Somebody has already talked to me about wanting that. So we'll do that. But saw Northern Residents then. Then in July, went down with Outer Island again. Saw Transients again. That was exciting. Had some of the first shirts at that point. Took photos. I'm like speed run through this now. And then went out for the World of Orcas tour on August 3rd. That was exciting. That was a lot of fun. We did only see humpbacks, but we saw a lot of humpbacks. The whole idea with the World of Orcas tour is like, I want to bring you into the world of orcas. We see them if we can. They are wild animals. And then I haven't gone on a tour since until the one that I'm going on in 2 days, October 5th. I don't know when I'm going to post this. If I post this within the next 24 hours, I will be very impressed with myself. But I don't know if that's going to happen. So we'll see. I'm excited. I think it's going to be good. But then after that, I went down to San Juan Island. We saw Transients from really, really, really far away. And then we saw L90 and her baby twice. We saw them on the 15th and then on the 16th. And the 16th, they were kind of far away, I think. They were pretty out there, which was too bad, but it was also too, like, we got, like, such a good pass the first day that it was like, oh my God, incredible. So happy for it. So that was really cool. And I think since then, I've been here. I lied. There was one more. So early September. This is serendipitous, actually. I've been wanting to tell this story, and I didn't have a platform for it because I didn't take enough like good footage to like be able to tell the story correctly on TikTok or Instagram to like feel like it would have been told like in the right manner. But I was working with Rob, and we were finishing up the last of the shirts. Like we had done all the stuff in house, so like we had all the blanks, and we were just trying to get through printing all of them. And so as soon as literally like we finished printing all of them, Joe was also there. Joe Peacock, who you've heard about, I did the podcast with him before, went and he was with us. And because he works with the whale watching, like he was able to get a little bit more. He's like connected with a lot more of the people that are there. Within the industry, we heard that there were killer whales not far because we were doing this in East Van, right? So it was just like pretty much like P&E area, if you know that. So we literally finished printing all of the shirts. They all cured. We shut off all the machinery that we were working with, and literally the last shirt, got it out, tucked it away, didn't start on orders till that night, and went to go see killer whales. And because we heard that there was like 4 nearby, and it was Jack, who I hadn't seen. So there's 2 bucket list kind of things this year, or 3, because Northern Resident killer whales, L128, and Jack, because he's such a gem. He's got a special story where he used to, enjoy himself with jet engines of boats when there was less regulation and they could just keep going when they were around. Get himself quite excited. There's even some footage that I don't know where it exists. I don't know if it exists online, but I know it does. Besides that, though, we went to Deep Cove, which is like Indian Arm up here. You got to go like across the Second Narrows Bridge, and then we went to the right because we heard that they were near there. And then when we were in Deep Cove, we heard that they were in the Second Narrows Bridge, so we were like, okay, we need to like rush to shipyards up in North Van. And so when I talk about like, the dedication to kind of like going to try and see whales from land on this is what I'm taught, like on here or on anything, like this is what I'm talking about. So we go from like Deep Cove to shipyards, and we like, as we're driving through, there's a road closer to the water that you can go on where there's a bunch of like industrial areas. And so it's actually on the phone when we were going through, and Joe's like, I haven't seen anything else about it. I'm like, okay. And we're driving, and like I'm in the front seat, and Joe's next to me, and we look through the industrial, and we see a fin. We're like, oh my God! We go fucking crazy. Hang up the phone soon after. Get to the place where there's there's parking at shipyards, go underneath, and then we grab literally everything that we have. I'm like running down the pier, just like, and there are people walking the other ways. There's like a really long pier down in North Vancouver. But running down the pier, just telling people like, there are orcas coming. You want to turn around. There are killer whales. They're going to be here in 3 minutes. There are orcas. They're going to be here in a second. And everybody's looking at me like, I don't want change. I don't need what's it called. I don't have any change. I don't want to be sold anything today. But then we got to the end, and so slowly a crowd started gathering, and then we saw the whales come through, which was really cool. And so we were there. We saw them do a decent pass. There was a boat that was next to them, so Joe and I were on the phone with like various agencies. I called my friend to try and get some more specific numbers to go through it. So like we were on the phone with them, but we got to see them, which was really cool. And then we actually jumped from kind of shipyards area down to, it's not Pacific Center, but it's the like shopping center just off the Lionsgate Bridge, right underneath it on the North Van side. And so we got there, parked, went down to the water and sat next to this lovely couple as we like sat and waited, and we're like, okay, they should be coming out here like somewhat soon. And we had a decent kind of panorama of the area, so like we should have seen them if because there was like me, Joe, and Rob kind of looking out, as well as like this couple now. And we waited. We saw a cruise ship literally pull out of the harbor and then turn and leave. So it had crossed through the Lionsgate Bridge, and we were there at that point in time. We were like at the Lionsgate probably for, I don't know, 45, no, probably not 45 minutes, probably like 30 minutes, which was really like, it was a long time, and that was probably an hour after we saw them at shipyard, so we were trying to come to the terms with the fact that the whales might have gone at that point. They would have gone to the other side, and we're like, okay, it's fine, it's going to be okay, it's still like all right in whatever instance. And then what happened? And then they go through, and we're sitting down, and I'm like, oh, we're not going to see them. We're like, I think it's moot. And then they came up just underneath like the Lionsgate next to Stanley Park. And that's like that was another, seeing Jack is one thing, but seeing orcas underneath the Lionsgate Bridge, it's a thing that I've seen photos of 1,000 times. I know it happens like once a quarter. So like once every 3 months. But like actually, sitting down and getting to experience like, these are our urban killer whales going through this waterway that everybody knows so well. It was really, really incredible to see them move through, because it's really like when they go into kind of Cole Harbor, that area just between like downtown Vancouver and North Van, like that's urban area at its finest. They do city tours there all the time through Cole Harbor, like it's crazy. And so this is where you'll hear people seeing them from the sea bus in the city, and like that happens so rarely. Like we saw the sea buses go through, and they could have seen them, but like I didn't see any information or like photos about it. Usually the public needs to get like really, really excited to and like beyond the photos in order for anything to be shared. There were some kayakers, I think, that were in Deep Cove that saw it enough that they could post about it, but that was kind of it that happened for that one. So that was my other instance of seeing orcas this year, though, and then now it's kind of holding out. Hopefully in 2 days I want to go on another whale watch or two before kind of the season's up at the end of this month, and I have no doubt that I'll be going and catching up with them from land this winter on a whole bunch of instances. All my like whale friends are now in Nanaimo, and I am so jealous of them all. Like being so close to, if you look up Dodd Narrows, it's like between Vancouver Island and Mudge Island. It's like one of the most popular places for orca passes, transient orca passes from land, at least from what I've seen. It might just be the people that I'm in touch with. But that's like the place to go, and I still haven't gone. And that's the thing about this, right? Like I've been doing this for 3 years, and I do feel like I have a decent kind of head on my shoulders for this stuff, but there's so much that I know for a fact that I still want to get to, and I'm excited to get to and kind of share with you guys. And show you how to do it as well, and like what's worth your while. My goal is to make all the mistakes, because I feel like that's the way to do it, right? Like if I can point you in all of the right directions so that you don't have to spend the time researching and making mistakes, and then I can kind of like be that guide. I think that's where I exist in this place. And hopefully next year too, that comes in the form of like talking to research companies too. That's the thing that I'm excited about and I want to do. I've like understood and seen that there's more researchers consistently that are excited about like online stuff and want to do kind of collaborations to promote the work that they're doing in many ways. The TV does a whole bunch of stuff. Like you can find a lot of interviews of a lot of people throughout it, but the nitty gritty of, what a week looks like, what the goals are for the organization, what they're working on this year, it's a whole other game. And so being able to show that on a more personal level is definitely a big goal of mine. It's a thing I'd love to do both here kind of and beyond. Ideally, I want to get into more YouTube videos of like, what these different kinds of populations look like across the world, because we have such a rich kind of diversity here in the Pacific Northwest of residents and transients and even different populations within and different families that are like really unique. Like this little transient indie is just a case, one could say. And you could talk for hours. I know a lot of people who could talk for hours just about him. And so my chair is caught. And so like figuring out kind of that line to be able to talk with you guys and be able to share those things is definitely, it's on my radar. It's what I want to do. And I also want to know what you guys want to hear. Like I just went through a conference kind of sitting down talking about like online stuff and, how to engage people. And a lot of it feels really markety and like slimy in a lot of ways. And, there's definitely going to be some clickbaity stuff that you do to try and, boost whatever and, try to make a living to an extent. But like, I really want to try and create as much engaging and useful content as I can for you guys. It's kind of been the idea. Like entertaining is fun, but it's also too, I'm like, anytime I do it, I'm like, this is both exciting and like, I want to sit down and I want to talk about, the the fundamentals of killer whale ecology and biology for an hour. And so I will be doing that more, but also too to like do that, set it up and edit it. Even I have a green screen up right now if you're online, but or if you're like only listening on audio. And so like putting stuff on there is going to take me like probably 2 hours, 3 hours just to get that stuff up. And that's, the beginning of this. And so to do anything else is like, it's a lot and trying to balance. So I'm trying to be as kind as I can to myself as I'm going through this, but I also want to be, open and honest with you guys as I'm going through of like what it is that I'm doing, what it is that like be very clear on what my goals are and trying to get this information out and like the stuff that I'm excited to learn. Because that's another half of like the people that I've appreciated the most online. There's a few different ones that I like consistently follow, like and try to keep up with. Not even do avenues that I'd like to or like be, an admiration of, but are one, true to themselves, and two, engage with the things that they're interested in. And like that's a large portion of what I'm doing in any instance. Like I want to, as soon as I hear something, be able to dive into it the fullest extent with regard to orcas. Like I want to have the time and the space to be able to, make calls, get more information and be able to disseminate it. And then more than that too, like there's a larger base of knowledge that I still need to gather. There's 2 books on my shelf right now that I need to go through that I've made my way a little bit through both, but like go through those, like get really, really kind of nitty gritty about the full extent. And also too, like I started Project Sonic even way back with the idea of the resources. And so there's a lot of ideas that I have for kind of online dashboard resources with regard to killer whales that I got close to making a few different times, and when I got close to like realizing how hard it was to put together a project of that size. And to be honest, one of the coolest ones that I've seen come out is Finwave by Cetology, which I don't think will be open to the public by the time that this podcast is out. But if you want to go check it out, you should. Cetology has a thing set up where you can go, or they will have a thing set up where the public can go and see a plethora of IDs for a bunch of different killer whales around this area, but also to is training models to be able to identify them, and you'll be able to find a lot of information about individuals, because you can download there was one point where I downloaded every killer whale catalog I could find across the world, and it came out to 30 or 40 something, which was an insane number, and I'm so mad that I've lost them, to be honest. But I'm going to be kind of rebooting that as much as possible to get that information back. It's just to be able to spend the time to do this kind of research and, gathering of information. It's a lot. And so, this year my focus was getting the land-based guide out. That took me probably 3 or 4 months of extra work. And I don't know if I've talked about this even on this podcast, but I have a full-time job outside of this. I've just recently gone down to 4 days a week. But I've been doing all of this full-time, 5 days a week, trying to get all of this other stuff sorted. That's, creating the tour, creating content, figuring out the YouTube, and filming it alone and doing the research was one thing. And then the other half of creating the blogs. I did my website practically by myself. I got some help formatting it closer to the end. Shout out Andrea. But a lot of these instances, just it's crazy how much of a time suck it is, and the amount of energy that it takes. And I like it. I don't want to, say all this and have it sound like I'm complaining, because it's not a bad thing to be able to spend a lot of time on this stuff. I know how excited I am to be able to dive into it more. And I feel like a lot of the time I'm spending right now is on pretty granular aspects of it. And so I've seen what I've been able to do, especially with the land-based guide and putting together a resource like that, where there's not too much even to put together, but it takes a long time to kind of get all the pieces. And so I really wanted to, do what I can and kind of parse it out to be able to provide that in time. And so that's the reason I think for this style of podcast that I wanted to do, because the initial inception of this was, and even before kind of I started thinking about doing the podcast episode that this one that you're listening to right now or watching, was to put together the events that happen in the world of orcas, strandings, research papers, new babies, captive news. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm putting together of these different things that happen around the world. Because I didn't even talk about the Coesaheus, the little whale that was stranded, whose mother was sadly beached in Zabalos. I'm going to say it wrong. But there's so many, unique stories. The orcas that were trapped in ice earlier. The New Zealand man who body slammed an orca, which is insane in its own right and ridiculous. And I have a lot to say about that, and swimming with orcas and swimming with cetacean programs all around the world, that we can get to at another point. But all of this deserves kind of the light of day. And I think, I'm doing this with a full-time job, thinking this is what I want to do. This is the thing that I know that I can put my time and effort towards, and I know I have the connections and the kind of foundation to be able to find and keep up with this stuff. The same way that I rely on other people for information upon politics or sports or arts and different kinds of things that are happening, of to be able to kind of stay in tune with that I'm not keeping up with as consistently. And so I hope that this can provide kind of that avenue for you. And so another avenue that I'm doing with this is I'm trying to put all the information that I can find about those events onto a spreadsheet. And so that's available on Patreon if you want to follow me there. This podcast will be up there as well, I think. But I'm going to end up doing more things going forward with it. This one I want to get up pretty quick. But that will be the spreadsheet with all the information will be there. It's going to have all of the specific kind of instances that happened throughout this past year. And then the other half that I think is really cool and exciting is all of the media that I see that's attached to it. So like everybody that's posted about the new baby L128, I'm going to find, every time that I see a post, I'm going to try to attach it so that you can find it in reference on that. So you can see what other creators are saying. You can say what organizations are talking about with regard to this one and the little, like the research that they're doing with regards to it and the ways that they're keeping up with it. There's a Norway and Iceland orca paper that just came out that was talking about how there was a killer whale who went from or who was spotted in Norway that was in Icelandic catalogs, and nobody had seen that since Keiko, the whale from Free Willy, who was freed with quotation marks around it earlier this century in the 2000s. He's the only one that was seen going from Iceland to Norway on that, like making that journey, and now there is proper proof of another one happening. Shout out to Emma Luck, the Northern Naturalist, for keeping her eye out on Happy Whale for that. But, you know, communicating those kinds of things are what's going to be on there. So if you want to go on Patreon, that's going to exist there. Because all of the information is public and it's just the like organization of it, and I'm going to be putting effort into that in other ways. I'm going to share as much as I can, but if you want like the full breadth of the resources that I'm going to be using, that's where that's going to be. And to be honest, Patreon's going to help me do more of this, be able to create more resources. I've spent a lot of time this year trying to get as many free resources as I can for you guys, and I'm going to continue on that route of like, I'm enjoying kind of diving into all of this. And if you want, the package of news about killer whales for the month, the year, that is hopefully what I can provide, as well as some kind of extra bits about how to see them and what's going on firsthand. So if you want to, be sure to check out Patreon for that. I am really excited to see what's going to happen in this next little bit. Keep an eye out. This next podcast is going to come out. I might try to keep them to pretty early in the month, so at least before November 10th, I'll come out with another one about the things that happened in October and some other kind of thoughts and feelings surrounding that. So keep an eye out. This is going to be a consistent thing for as long as I can keep it consistent. And to be honest, this was actually a lot more fun than I anticipated. I was pretty nervous going into it just because I was like, I haven't done filming and a recording like this before. So thanks for sticking around. I'm glad to help you with your laundry or your dishes or your car ride as you're making your way through. And I hope that you have a lovely day. I hope you have a lovely October, this October 2024. If you are in the United States, vote. If you're in Canada, vote, please. I've got my ballots for, I only can do the States, so I'm doing a ballot that way internationally, as I'm not in the States and able to go on election day itself. So definitely do that. Keep your eye out for anything coming up soon, and I hope you guys have a lovely time once again. So my name is the Orca Man. This is the Orca Man podcast, and let me know what you want references to, and I'll do my best to get them sorted. All right. I'll see you in November.